Hey guys, welcome to Game Memories. I'm not going to spend too much time on the camera here because this video is pretty long. Uh, these are some of my very first memories I've ever had. It started with the NES system, and I'm hoping that with this show you get to see my evolution through playing video games and how I ended up being the gamer that I am today. Well, on that note, I hope you enjoy, and I hope you rate, comment, and subscribe. Thanks!
I think in 1992 or 1991, a family friend of ours named Steve, who we don't really talk to anymore, was really gracious enough to actually give us a Nintendo Entertainment System. And I remember, like, back in the day, seeing that box for the first time, the Starry Night Sky with the Nintendo system on the front. It kind of like grabbed at me right away. And this one came with the orange zapper and not the original gray one, so I kind of came a little bit late. And of course, it came with the Mario and Duck Hunt bundle. So, yeah, I just remember when I first popped it in for the first time, I was kind of just blown away by the fact that I could choose the game. You know, I didn't even start Mario Brothers yet. It was just going through that menu and just seeing that, like, that really quiet black background, and you could see either Mario running or you could see the Duck Hunt duck, and I couldn't choose for like a good 5 minutes for what was going to be my first game. And I think what I chose was Duck Hunt. And I think the reason for that was because my parents were pretty excited to see how the gun was going to work, so I decided to let them choose for me. And yeah, it was just really awesome. I just remember the graphics were just something I'd never seen in my life before. I know that we're all used to like Call of Duty and just pushing it to like the utmost extreme with like Crysis and whatever. But back then, you know, you never saw anything like a Nintendo Entertainment System. Like those little pixelated graphics was just unreal, you know. Like you see TV shows and cartoons all the time, but you never saw like these like really simplistic renditions of like blades of grass or a dog laughing, and it really stuck with me. So, you know, what else can really be said about Duck Hunt that people haven't said already? So we'll move on to the next game that I got to play, which was Super Mario Brothers, and that game was just amazing at its time. It was just like It's funny because, you know, nowadays I try to run through Mario Brothers as fast as I can, and now I can actually beat the game with almost no problem. But when I was a kid, I was just so excited to get to the levels that were just like dark, you know, like the nighttime levels with like the snowy ground, or just the Lakitu level. My mind was blown away whenever I could get that close into the game. I never even assumed that I would ever be able to get to Princess Peach. And honestly, when I finally saw her, that was, again, another thing that just, like, blew my mind away. And another thing, too, is, you know, you take things for granted. I know that when I go through Bowser's stage in Mario Brothers, it doesn't have the same impact as it did as a kid. As a kid, that music was just so... It wasn't scary, but it was creepy enough. And the black background compared to, like... you know, going through the big, happy, blue sky worlds of Mario Brothers was a huge, drastic change, and, like, you felt like you were inside of a dungeon, you know? It's just like, what's gonna come next? Like, as I'm walking into this dungeon, what else am I going to see? You know, a sense of exploration was kind of put in there, especially with, like, those first 3 steps as you get into, Bowser's Castle. It really did feel like you were ascending into, like, a dark labyrinth. You know, like a dark dungeon. But yeah, moving on. I guess I can talk about the other games I owned before I moved on to my next system. I owned a Sesame Street game. I forget which one it is. It's the one with the bathtub and the Ferris wheel. Again, these are just things that pop out in my head. Like the Ferris wheel was really cool looking as a kid. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Real quick, I'll just say that probably what stood out to me the most as a kid was making it to uh, Bebop and Rocksteady. Just seeing those game sprites of characters you already knew was exciting enough. I didn't need to beat the game. I didn't need there to be like some type of really huge story or plot development. It was just, can I see Bebop as an 8-bit character? It was just enough to give me thrills for some reason. And what else? I had Tetris, but no one ever explained to me how to play it, so I'd always just kind of stack it to the top and just lose every time. Um, Zelda 1 and 2, of course. I had those. Uh, I guess I can talk about Zelda 2 real quick. I always got so close to beating that game, and it wasn't that I gave up at the end. It was that the game would always delete my save data as I would get towards the end of the game. And so I'd spend another 2 or 3 years building up the motivation to try again, because you know that game is wicked tough, so, there was always that. Another one that's a little bit more obscure is Base Wars. Me and my brother used to play that all the time, and it's actually a really cool game. It's baseball, which is pretty fucking lame if you're a nerd, but, to each their own. But, it had robots, and, like, each robot had its own special personality, or traits, rather, and, you could actually fight each other as you're stealing bases and stuff. It was pretty cool. We played that a lot, surprisingly. I think I also owned Blades of Steel, which was a hockey game. Again, I think you got to kick each other's ass in it, and who doesn't love that? And then after that, I played so many good games in my childhood, thankfully, but I didn't own most of them because my family wasn't very well off. And so many memories are just attached to just playing games with friends. Like, I had a neighbor from across the street. His family were a couple of drug addicts, so I wasn't allowed over there, at least by my parents' permission. But one time, I just, was a little bit of a rebel and went there anyway, and I got to play a very special game that it took me a really long time to figure out what it was, but it was Kickle Cubicle, and it was like a puzzle game with really good-looking sprites and stuff, and it was just, and cool bosses. I'm so glad I was able to figure out what that was, because that bothered me for like a good 10 years before I figured it out again. And then I had a really good friend who, had all the classics. He had like Mario Brothers 2. I actually had Mario Brothers 3. I remember picking that up at a KB Toys. But he also had Metroid. He rented a lot of games, so we got to play Felix the Cat, Darkwing Duck, Wolverine, the X-Men video game. What else? Oh, Life Force, Super C, Street Fighter 2010. That was a terrible game. I had another friend who was like a video game junkie, or rather his brother was, so he got to get everything. He'll definitely show up a lot in future episodes. His name was Bud, and and by the way, the friend before that was Trevor. But yeah, Bud had a whole mess of games. He had, God. I don't really remember playing too many. He had Crystalis. Crystalis was such a good game, and he had, Ghost and Goblins, the Mega Man games. Oh, yeah, he had all the Mega Man games, actually. And my favorite turned out to be Mega Man 3. Although Mega Man 4 stood out a lot to me too. And Mega Man 2 rose to fame, and everyone loves that Wily theme, and I don't blame them. But as a kid, I loved Snake Man and Shadow Man. I cared about the bosses, and I thought 3 had the coolest bosses. He had Needle Man and stuff. I don't know. A lot of people hated Top Man, but I never thought he was dumb. I thought his stage music was really good too. Oh, yeah, let me talk about the Game Genie real quick. I never got to own a Game Genie, but how cool is that? That there was a device that could let you cheat in games. It granted wishes in video games, and every kid had to have one. My parents would not buy me one. Eventually, my friend Jeremy, like I mentioned before, the kid across the street with the parents, he let me borrow it. And I tried to bring it home. And my dad found it, and he flipped out. He like put me on the table. He didn't hit me or anything, but he was like screaming in my face. He's like, "Where did you get this?" And I'm like, Mom bought it for me." He's like, "Oh yeah, where's the garbage for the box?" And he starts rummaging through the trash can, and I'm like, "Oh shit, I got caught, no!" And I got punished, and I had to return the game back to my neighbor. Man, that thing was so friggin' elusive in my lifetime. Um, yeah, and I think one other game I guess I can talk about real quick for just the NES library was there was a friend of my brother's who obviously I didn't get to see all that often because he wasn't my friend. But when I went over his house, I got the pleasure of playing Adventure Island 3, and that was so cool. I loved, again, probably the most distinctive memory from my childhood with that game was just riding the dinosaurs and going through the giant cave at the end of the stage. If it wasn't for those two features, it probably wouldn't be in my memory today, and I probably wouldn't have known that I played it as a kid. And he also had Friday the 13th. This kid was like obsessed with horror, so I'll skip on childhood memories of horror films, but yeah, he had like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, the video game, and they were shit. I didn't like playing them at all, but it's still there. I still remember playing them. I also remember DuckTales, and that was a really good game. I remember that my babysitter owned DuckTales. No one else did, just him. He was like way older than me, but he had it, and he would bring it over whenever he was hired to babysit us. So he would bring over this coveted game, DuckTales, and it was cool. You got to see Scrooge McDuck on the little cover there. And I'd pop it in, and there he was, in 8-bit glory. His face was just right there on the title screen, and like I tell you guys, just to see characters you've seen before in sprite form was just, it got my jollies. I don't know why. But, yeah, I actually managed to beat that one of the times that he came over with it. So it must have been pretty easy. And, yeah, that's the only one I remember from my babysitter. But another memory that I wanted to share with you guys was also another elusive game, or rather two games. It was this Ninja Turtles arcade game for the NES and Manhattan Project. I always wanted it as a kid. I kept telling my parents I wanted it. They would never get it for me. I must have been too expensive, or again, they were just on hard times or whatever. But I never managed to get it. My friends never owned it officially. They would borrow it from a friend once in a while, and we got to play it for like a day, and then we'd have to return it. So I remember seeing, like, we would go to church. I'm not a religious man anymore, not the point. But when we would go to church during Easter, the kids would have to put their favorite toys up front and just show a huge display of what's the most valuable toy to a child on Easter Sunday for some reason. And one kid had Ninja Turtles 2. And God, I tell you, one of the worst places to want to steal something. I didn't steal it, but man, did I want to. And when that kid walked out of the sermon with that game, I was just like, I wanted to be his best friend. I was just like, buddy, you got a good game there. And he's like, I know. I'm like, yeah, you got a really good game. He's like, okay, gotcha. And I remember Manhattan Project. I found out about that, and one Thanksgiving, me and my brother broke a wishbone, and I was young, and I thought that wishbones actually granted wishes. So with my winning piece, I was like, I want a copy of Ninja Turtles Manhattan Project. And I waited a week, and I was like, where is it? Where's my Manhattan Project? Yeah, that's it. I thought those two things would be funny to mention. But yeah, well, real quick, I'll tell you, Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, probably what stands out most to me with that was seeing the Pizza Hut logo, Bebop coming through the floor, and then, like, just double teaming them from the sides and hearing that noise, of you hitting the boss, and the boss flickering. when you saw him like flicker really fast, you were just like, yes, yes, you know, he's almost done. Again, things that you just take for granted these days is just little things, the little things, and that's why NES is my most cherished era, was because, you know, we have so many advancements, but when you had close to nothing, it was the little things that just meant everything to you.
So yeah, that was episode 1. I'm sure there was a ton more games I could have gone over. In fact, I know there could have been a ton more games I could have gone over, but there just wasn't enough time. You know, it would have taken over about an hour to cover everything in great detail. So I hope for what I gave you, you liked. Next episode's going to be Sega Genesis, but I assure you, we're going to go over every single Nintendo console, all the way to probably Nintendo Wii or Wii U. So, you know, stay tuned. I hope you liked it. And, yeah, thanks.